The air crackled with anticipation. It was less like a political rally and more like a rock concert. Donald Trump was back in Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, a crucial battleground. Trump had chosen a fitting venue. The rural expanse outside Pittsburgh was now a sea of tents, flags, and fervent supporters. The crowd was a sea of red Make America Great Again hats, a testament to Trump's enduring appeal among his base. They chanted his name, their voices echoing across the vast field. The energy was infectious, fueled by a potent cocktail of anger, hope, and defiance. These were people who felt forgotten, left behind by a system they believed no longer served them. They saw in Trump a savior, a man who spoke their language, who understood their frustrations. Many had camped out overnight, braving the elements to secure their spot for this political pilgrimage. They came bearing signs, some hand-painted, others professionally printed, all proclaiming their allegiance to the man who had promised to shake up the establishment. The crowd was a microcosm of America itself, a melting pot of backgrounds, beliefs, and grievances, but they were united by one common thread, their unwavering support for Donald J. Trump. They were ready for a show, and they knew that Trump, the ultimate showman, would not disappoint. The air crackled with anticipation as the sun began its slow descent. The stage, a massive structure draped in red, white, and blue bunting, loomed large at the end of the field. Giant screens, strategically positioned throughout the crowd, flickered to life, showing a montage of Trump rallies from campaigns past. A soundtrack of patriotic anthems and country music blared from the speakers, further amplifying the electric atmosphere. The crowd, a sea of expectant faces, swayed in unison, their chants growing louder with each passing moment. Rumors rippled through the throng about what surprises Trump might have in store. The crowd was primed, ready to erupt at any moment. The stage itself was a spectacle. Towers of speakers rose like sentinels, promising a sonic boom to accompany the political one. A giant American flag illuminated by spotlights flapped gently in the breeze behind the podium. This wasn't just a stage, it was a carefully constructed symbol of American might, a backdrop designed to amplify Trump's message of strength and national revival. Security personnel, their faces stern and alert, formed a tight perimeter around the stage. The atmosphere buzzed with an almost tangible tension, a sense that something momentous was about to occur. The crowd, a sea of restless energy, seemed to hold its breath in unison. The crowd was a fascinating spectacle in itself. It wasn't just a sea of red hats, though those were certainly in abundance. It was a tapestry of humanity, woven from the fabric of small-town America. There were families who had piled into their pickup trucks, driving for hours to be here. There were groups of friends, their laughter tinged with a nervous excitement. And there were lone figures, their faces etched with a quiet determination. Each face in the crowd held a story, a reason for being there. Some were drawn by Trump's charisma, his ability to connect with their anxieties and aspirations. Others were motivated by a deep-seated anger, a belief that their country was slipping away from them. And still others were simply caught up in the moment, swept along by the tide of energy that pulsed through the crowd. The crowd was a powder keg waiting for a spark, and everyone knew that Trump was the one holding the match. Amidst the throng of supporters, a different breed of attendee navigated the crowds with a keen eye for business. These were the merchants of MAGA, opportunistic entrepreneurs who had descended upon the rally like bees to a honeypot. They hawked their wares from makeshift stalls and blankets spread out on the ground, their voices hoarse from hours of hawking their wares. T-shirts emblazoned with Trump's face, slogans and caricatures were a hot commodity. There were Make America Great Again hats in every imaginable style, from the classic red to camouflage and even sequined versions. Flags, banners, buttons, and bumper stickers. If it could be branded with Trump's image or message, it was being sold. Food vendors did a brisk trade, selling hot dogs, hamburgers, and fries to the hungry masses. Bottled water and soda were a lifeline in the afternoon heat. As the hours ticked by, the crowd became a microcosm of society, a melting pot of ideologies and backgrounds. Conversations sparked and flickered, revealing the hopes and anxieties of those gathered. An elderly couple from rural Pennsylvania shared their concerns about the economy, their faces etched with worry. They had voted for Trump in the past, hoping he would bring back jobs and restore their faith in the American dream. A group of young men, their faces flushed with excitement, boasted about their plans to join the military. They saw Trump as a strong leader, someone who would restore America's standing in the world. Each conversation, each interaction painted a vivid picture of the deep divisions that ran through American society. The rally was a stark reminder that the country was at a crossroads, grappling with fundamental questions about its identity and its future. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the rally grounds, a palpable shift occurred in the atmosphere. The anticipation, which had been building steadily all day, reached a fever pitch. The crowd, energized by hours of speeches, music, and camaraderie, was primed for Trump's arrival. The air crackled with nervous energy, like the moments before a thunderstorm. People surged towards the stage, craning their necks for a glimpse of the man who had become a symbol of their hopes, fears, and frustrations. It was as if the crowd itself was holding its breath, waiting for the moment when Trump would take the stage and unleash the storm. The pre-show entertainment was a carefully orchestrated spectacle designed to whip the crowd into a frenzy. A playlist of patriotic anthems and country music blared from the speakers, the rhythm pulsing through the crowd like a heartbeat. On the giant screens flanking the stage, a montage of images played. Trump shaking hands with veterans, Trump addressing cheering crowds, Trump standing triumphantly with his family. A series of warm-up acts took the stage, each one more fervent in their praise of Trump than the last. Local politicians, radio personalities, and even a reality TV star took turns firing up the crowd, their voices hoarse with emotion. They railed against the radical left, the fake news media, and anyone else they deemed an enemy of the people. The crowd roared its approval, their chants and cheers echoing across the rally grounds. A hush fell over the crowd as the familiar strains of "God Bless the USA" filled the air. It was a moment of pure theater, expertly crafted to heighten the drama of Trump's entrance. The giant screens flanking the stage went dark, plunging the rally grounds into a momentary blackout. Then a spotlight pierced the darkness, illuminating a single figure standing at the center of the stage. The crowd erupted, their cheers echoing like a thunderclap. Trump, his face a mask of grim determination, soaked in the adulation. He raised his hand in a wave, a gesture that sent a fresh wave of excitement surging through the crowd. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, the reason they had traveled from far and wide. "We're gonna take back our country!" Trump boomed into the microphone, his voice thick with emotion. Trump launched into his speech, his words a torrent of grievances, accusations, and promises. He railed against his usual targets, the fake news media, the radical left, and the deep state accusing them of conspiring to destroy America. His words were like kindling thrown on a bonfire, igniting the anger and resentment that simmered within the crowd. He spoke of a country under siege, a nation teetering on the brink of collapse. The American dream, he claimed, was under attack, stolen by corrupt politicians and greedy corporations. The crowd ate it up, their faces contorted in a mixture of anger, fear, and a strange sort of exhilaration. But Trump offered more than just anger and fear. He offered hope, however fleeting and ill-defined. He promised to restore America to its former glory, to make it great again. He vowed to bring back jobs, secure the borders, and stand up to America's enemies, both foreign and domestic. His promises were vague, light on specifics and heavy on hyperbole. But they resonated with the crowd, feeding their longing for a return to a simpler, more prosperous time. Trump's genius lay in his ability to tap into the anxieties and aspirations of his followers, to offer them a vision of a future that felt both familiar and tantalizingly out of reach. But beneath the promises, there was a darker undercurrent to Trump's message. He warned of a stolen election, of a system rigged against him and his supporters. Trump's economic pronouncements were a mix of boasts, distortions, and outright falsehoods. He took credit for a booming economy, conveniently ignoring the fact that he had inherited a period of steady growth from his predecessor. He touted his tax cuts as a boon to the middle class, even as evidence mounted that they had primarily benefited the wealthy. He promised to bring back manufacturing jobs from overseas, a pledge he had made and broken during his previous time in office. He railed against trade deals he claimed were unfair to American workers, while offering no concrete plans to renegotiate them. His economic message was a hodgepodge of populist slogans and empty promises, designed to appeal to the gut rather than the head. Trump's vision of the American dream was a narrow and exclusionary one. It was a dream rooted in nostalgia, a longing for a time when America was a more homogeneous society, a time before the civil rights movement and the feminist revolution. It was a dream that appealed to those who felt threatened by the changing demographics of the country, those who longed for a return to a simpler, more familiar past. He spoke of law and order, of cracking down on crime and restoring respect for authority. He promised to protect America's borders, to keep out those he deemed undesirable immigrants, refugees, and anyone else he considered a threat to the American way of life. His message was a potent mix of xenophobia, racism, and cultural resentment. As Trump's speech reached its climax, the atmosphere in the crowd reached a fever pitch. He had tapped into their deepest fears and anxieties, their anger and resentment. He had offered them a scapegoat for their problems, a target for their rage, and he had given them a sense of purpose, a mission to save their country from the forces he claimed were arrayed against it. "We are standing at a crossroads in American history," Trump thundered, his voice hoarse with emotion. "The future of our country is at stake. The choice is clear, either we win or they win. There is no middle ground." He called on his supporters to fight back, to reject the lies of the media and the corruption of the political establishment. As the crowd erupted in cheers, their chants of USA, USA echoing across the darkening sky, it was impossible to ignore the sense that something dangerous was brewing. As Trump steamed ahead, his tirade against the deep state reaching a fever pitch, a lone figure emerged from the throng. A young woman, her face contorted in a mask of fury, began shouting at the stage, her voice barely audible above the roar of the crowd. Her words, though difficult to discern, were clearly in opposition to Trump's message. The crowd, initially caught off guard, quickly turned on her, their cheers morphing into a chorus of boos and jeers. Some began shoving, trying to silence her, others hurled insults, their faces twisted in anger. The woman, however, stood her ground, her sign, a simple message of peace and unity, held high above her head. Security personnel, their faces grim, moved swiftly to extract her from the crowd. It was a tense moment, a stark reminder of the deep divisions that Trump's rhetoric continued to stoke. The incident, though brief, cast a pall over the proceedings, a stark reminder that beneath the veneer of unity, a current of anger and intolerance simmered. The arrival of a convoy of pickup trucks, their beds adorned with massive Trump flags and menacing accessories, sent a ripple of unease through the outskirts of the rally. The trucks, their engines revving aggressively, circled the perimeter. Their occupants, mostly young men, their faces obscured by sunglasses and bandanas, glared menacingly at those they passed. Some in the crowd cheered their arrival, interpreting it as a show of solidarity, a display of raw, untamed patriotism. Others, however, felt a knot of apprehension tighten in their stomachs. The trucks, with their implicit threat of violence, felt like a dangerous escalation, a reminder of the darker impulses that lurked beneath the surface of the MAGA movement. The incident, though brief and seemingly inconsequential, served as a stark reminder that for all the talk of peaceful protest and democratic values, there were those within the movement who were all too willing to resort to intimidation and force. The line between passionate support and something far more sinister felt perilously thin. Between speakers and during the lulls in Trump's own address, a chorus of conspiracy theories rippled through the crowd, whispered conversations morphing into fervent pronouncements. QAnon slogans, once relegated to the fringes of the internet, were openly displayed on t-shirts and banners. Talk of stolen elections. Deep state cabals and satanic rituals permeated the air, a toxic fog of misinformation and paranoia. One particularly animated man, his face flushed, regaled anyone within earshot with tales of a globalist plot to undermine American sovereignty, his words tumbling out in a torrent of half-truths and outright fabrications. He spoke of microchips implanted through vaccines, of a coming storm that would sweep away the evil elites, his eyes alight with a disturbing fervor. The ease with which these outlandish theories circulated, readily accepted as gospel by a significant portion of the crowd, was a chilling testament to the erosion of shared reality, the fragmentation of truth in the age of social media. A scuffle broke out near the stage, a flurry of flailing limbs and angry shouts. A man, his face contorted in rage, had used his flagpole, adorned with a Trump 2024 flag, to strike another attendee. The reason for the altercation remained murky, but it was clear that the flag, once a symbol of patriotism, had been transformed into a weapon, a blunt instrument of aggression. Security personnel, struggling to contain the situation, wrestled the assailant to the ground, while others tended to the victim, his face bloodied and bruised. The incident, though quickly quelled, left an unsettling feeling in its wake. It was a stark reminder of the volatile undercurrent that ran through the rally, the ease with which passionate support could morph into violence. The flag, lying crumpled on the ground, served as a potent symbol of the way in which symbols of national identity could be twisted, their meaning distorted to serve a dangerous and divisive agenda. The media, as always, was a lightning rod for Trump's ire. He reserved some of his most vitriolic attacks for the assembled journalists, accusing them of being enemies of the people, purveyors of fake news, and willing accomplices in a grand conspiracy to silence conservative voices. The crowd, whipped into a frenzy by Trump's words, turned their anger on the press. Jeers and insults rained down from the stands. Some hurled objects, water bottles, crumpled signs, even a half-eaten hot dog. The journalists, huddled together in their designated enclosure, endured the onslaught with a grim stoicism, their cameras rolling, capturing the ugliness of the moment. It was a chilling display of the deep distrust and animosity that Trump had sown towards the free press, a cornerstone of American democracy. The incident served as a stark reminder of the fragility of truth in an age of misinformation, the vulnerability of those tasked with holding power to account. As the rally drew to a close and the crowd began to disperse, a sense of unease lingered in the air. The events of January 6th, the day a mob stormed the U.S. Capitol in an attempt to overturn the results of the 2020 election, cast a long shadow over the proceedings. The rhetoric at the rally, the anger, the resentment, the implicit threats of violence, all felt eerily familiar. While there were no immediate signs of a repeat of that dark day, the potential for unrest, for the escalation of rhetoric into action, felt palpable. The question on many people's minds as they left the rally grounds was whether this was simply a taste of what was to come, a harbinger of a future where political violence became the norm, where the very fabric of American democracy was stretched to its breaking point. The rally in rural Pennsylvania was more than just a political event. It was a stark illustration of the deep divisions cleaving American society. The rural-urban divide, a defining characteristic of American politics, was on full display. Trump's message resonated deeply with the predominantly white working-class attendees. However, just beyond the rally grounds, a different America existed, more diverse and progressive. The tightrope walk of Pennsylvania politics. Trump's return to Pennsylvania underscored the state's critical importance. As a swing state, Pennsylvania could tip the scales in a close race. Both parties recognized the importance of capturing Pennsylvania voters. Democrats aimed to mobilize their base young people, minorities, and suburban voters. Republicans sought to capitalize on Trump's popularity. Section 3. Mobilizing the base. A strategy for victory? The rally highlighted a key strategic question facing both parties. Could a strategy focused on mobilizing the base be enough to win in a deeply divided electorate? Trump's approach, with its emphasis on energizing his core supporters, had proven successful in the past, but it remained to be seen whether it could deliver victory in a changing political landscape. Democrats faced a similar dilemma. While their base was energized by opposition to Trump, they also needed to persuade moderate and independent voters that they offered a positive vision for the future, rather than simply being the anti-Trump party. They had to articulate a clear and compelling message that resonated beyond their base, addressing the concerns of voters across the political spectrum. The question of whether a base mobilization strategy could succeed was further complicated by the changing demographics of the electorate. The increasing diversity of the American population, particularly in key swing states like Pennsylvania, meant that neither party could afford to ignore the concerns of minority voters. Looming over the rally was the specter of the 2020 election and its tumultuous aftermath. Trump's repeated and unsubstantiated claims of a stolen election, amplified by his allies in the media and within the Republican Party, had sown deep distrust in the electoral process among his supporters. The January 6th insurrection, a direct result of this disinformation campaign, served as a stark reminder of the fragility of American democracy. The rally in Pennsylvania, with its undercurrent of anger and resentment, raised concerns about the potential for further unrest in the 2024 election. Trump's rhetoric, with its hints of violence and its delegitimization of the electoral process, had created a climate of fear and uncertainty, raising the stakes for the upcoming election. The question of whether the 2024 election would be a peaceful transfer of power or a repeat of the chaos and violence of 2020 hung heavy in the air. The answer, it seemed, depended on the choices made by both political leaders and ordinary citizens in the months and years to come. Section 5. Beyond Pennsylvania, the national implications. The rally in Pennsylvania was not an isolated event. It was a microcosm of the larger political and social forces shaping the United States. The issues at play, economic inequality, cultural anxiety, racial resentment, and the erosion of trust in institutions, were not confined to one state or one region. They were national issues, playing out on a national stage. The outcome of the election in Pennsylvania and in the nation as a whole would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the individuals involved, but for the future of American democracy itself. It remained to be seen whether the country could find a way to bridge its divisions, to restore faith in its institutions, and to forge a path forward that reflected the values of its founding principles. The answer, as always, lay in the hands of its citizens. The dust settled over the Pennsylvania rally grounds, leaving behind a residue of unease. The event, a spectacle of fervent support and simmering discontent, mirrored the nation's deep divisions. Trump's words, laced with grievance and nostalgia, resonated deeply with his base. Yet beyond the cheers lay a deeper unease, exposing the fault lines of American society. The Pennsylvania rally, a microcosm of a nation in flux, provided a glimpse into the road ahead, a path paved with uncertainty and shadowed by the specter of division. The upcoming election loomed large, a high-stakes gamble for the future of American democracy. The answer resided in the hands of the people. The rally in Pennsylvania was a stark reminder that America stood at a crossroads, facing a battle for the very soul of the nation. The forces of division, fueled by economic anxiety, social change, and the erosion of trust in institutions, threatened to tear the country apart. The allure of easy answers, of scapegoating and demonization, beckoned with a dangerous allure. Yet, amidst the darkness, flickers of hope persisted. The enduring belief in the promise of America, the inherent decency of its people, the resilience of its democratic institutions, these were the embers upon which a brighter future could be built. The task ahead was daunting, but not insurmountable. It required a recommitment to the principles of civility, empathy, and a willingness to engage in the hard work of bridging divides. The path forward demanded a rejection of the politics of fear and division, a return to a shared understanding of facts and truth, and a recognition that the well-being of the nation depended on the well-being of all its citizens.